Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Book Review session. This is the first review we are doing in 2025, and we are so excited to be doing this tonight. In the book club, we have gotten several reviews, comments, feedback, and it has really been exhilarating. Ladies and gentlemen, the book we are reviewing tonight is 4 Things You Absolutely Must Do in Your First 90 Days as a New Manager, and 1 Thing to Avoid at All Costs. The book is actually a mouthful. I mean the title. Tonight, we have 2 great scholars who will be doing justice to the book review. And of course, back end, we have our ever reliable Ezine Biora. But let me just quickly mention our book reviewers. First and foremost, I would like to welcome, for the umpteenth time, you know when you have done something so many times, you stop counting. For the umpteenth time, Queensley Okon, who is an information officer with Ibrom FM. She's one of our co-discussants today. And also, we also have the privilege of having with us Victor Agu, who is also not a stranger to facilitating webinars and sessions for us on this platform. Victor is an HR project manager. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I can conveniently hand over to the reviewers, but just to mention, my name is Oluyemi Adeosho. Ladies and gentlemen, I hand over to the book discussants. I don't know if Ezine would like to say anything at the beginning or would like to come at the end.
Maybe at the end, but just welcome to everyone. And I guess it's not too late. People are still saying Happy New Year. So Happy New Year to everyone in the book club. And it's lovely to have Victor here. And welcome back, Uwa, to the lectern.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Happy New Year, everyone. It's been a while. How's everyone doing? Victor, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're here to make this as simple and as interesting as possible. Of course, the pressure is on, but we'll do our best to make it, yeah. So today, the book we're discussing is the New Manager Handbook. So 4 things to do in your first 90 days as a new manager and 1 thing to avoid at all costs. It's a very interesting book. I mean, Rosanna, she was able to compile different thoughts and ideas from various thought leaders and managers, people who have done various things in different industries. And because of that, they put it in this little book. I mean, it seems little, but there's a lot of knowledge that's passed through. I mean, Victor can testify about this. So let's get started. So first of all, before we even get and delve into the major thing, who is a good manager and who's a bad manager? I think we'll need to define those terms. Then that will help us as we go through. Then we'll now decide, or rather learn the things you should do, because you're a new manager. So this is a new terrain. So you need to know who ends up being a good manager and who ends up being a bad manager. So who is a good manager? Okay, maybe we'll start with the bad managers first. It's better to start with the negative things so that we can get that out of the way. I think that helps. So a bad manager, who is a bad manager? A bad manager is a micromanager. The person micromanages their team, always in their ears, always nitpicking every single detail. That's 1 thing about a bad manager. A bad manager is also very arrogant. They feel they know everything. They don't need to rely on anybody for anything. So while I'm mentioning these attributes, so you check yourself and decide if you're a good or bad manager. For those of you that are very experienced, no shade to anybody, but just check yourself. It could be a checklist for you. So a bad manager is also too friendly. I'm sure that one might come as a surprise because you're thinking, why would you say a bad manager is too friendly? Because When you're too friendly, you can't make very tough decisions that would move the company forward and achieve the goals that they want to achieve. So in essence, because now you've become basically a people pleaser, and that doesn't work long term, because you're going to have to hurt some people and you're going to have to make some people happy. So who are you making happy at the end of the day, and who is getting hurt, and how do you deal with that long term? A bad manager also gives unclear instructions. They don't know where to start from. There's no foundation. Where do you stand? What exactly do you want me to do? They can't define what the goals or the mission or the vision is. A bad manager is always also critical, very, very critical. They don't know how to give, they don't know how to give you honest and productive feedback. They just only know how to criticize, because the truth is, at some point, yes, criticism will come up, but is it constructive? Is it productive? Is it going to contribute to your overall productivity and well-being? So bad managers do that. Bad managers also always blame others, because they cannot take they cannot take corrections themselves. So they always blame people, and they don't know how to own up. They're not accountable, basically, to themselves and other people. So that are just tips of who a bad manager is. So who's a good manager? Obviously, it's the reverse of that. A good manager shares their vision, they're very clear. They define it clearly. This is the vision, these are the goals. A good manager leads by example. It's very important for you as a manager to lead by example. They demonstrate integrity. Of course, people should be able to rely and depend on you. And that will not happen if they can't even show, you have nowhere, as in stand for something or fall for anything. So you are standing for nothing. What's the point? So a good manager does that. A good manager communicates effectively. I mean, how else will I tell what it is you want if you can't communicate it to me? It's one thing to say something, but it's another thing to communicate it, and not just communicate, but effectively. Because good communication ends when the receiver can decode the message you have sent. It's as simple as that. They make hard decisions. This is something that you're going to come through. As HR managers, you make a lot of these hard decisions. Whose salary you're cutting down, who you're going to fire, people that need training, performance appraisal. There are a lot of hard decisions you make. So if you don't make a lot of those decisions, or if you don't even know that you're supposed to be making them, then how good of the manager are you? They recognize success. It's very important to recognize that in your team, because if you cannot celebrate your team's wins, then what is the point? What kind of managing are you doing, or how effectively are you managing your team? And last but not the least, they empower others, they motivate you, they want you to do better. It's not a competition. They always want their team to be better than what they were. So these are just quick attributes of a good and a bad manager. So let's get into the book in full. So the book talks about the things you would do, or you're supposed to do, as a good manager. Now, this is a new terrain, and you're coming up, maybe you were a subordinate before, or maybe you've worked in different teams, and now you have to be at the helm, because a manager is always at the helm of affairs. So you are basically taking charge of every single thing that's coming to your table. So you're in a new position. How do you handle that? You're thrown, let's say, you're just like Daniel in the lion's den. The difference is these wolves, or rather these lions, are not so, they're not as tough as those lions, but they're tough regardless. So how do you do this? Of course, obviously, you can't say that everybody just becomes the good manager overnight. It's not possible at the end of the day, because a good manager has to learn to become a good manager. You don't just become something. You have to learn. There's always a process. When we're told to trust the process, this is what we mean. You have to start from somewhere. So how do you get there? So a manager, or as a new manager, you learn. It's not something you're born with. You always learn. And of course, for those of you that do L&D, you understand that learning is very important for you to become better than what you were. So you're not born a good manager, you learn to be a good manager. And management is also very collaborative. So don't expect that you are depending on just the things that you want to achieve. You have to understand that management is very collaborative. You're going to have to talk to people. You're going to have to learn from people, not just yourself. And at the end of that journey, your triumphs are less important than your teams. You're not aiming to get personal victories. You're aiming for your team's victories. So think of yourself as a mother with children. So your team or your team members are your children, and you happen to be the mother. And you have to take care of every single thing. You have to understand every single member in your team. So that's how it works being a manager. So it's very collaborative. You need to understand that. So why do managers matter? Well, good managers give their team or help their team become more productive. Of course, the book gave us some statistics, said 50% of employees have quit to escape bad managers. That's bad. That's why I had to define who a good and a bad manager was at the beginning, so that you get the idea of who both of them are. And teams with great managers are 23% more productive. That's a good number. But then we need to get, how do we measure productivity? Data analysts can maybe explain it better to us. But for you to have a great manager heading your team and you become productive, that tells you everything you need to know. And 70% of employee engagement is driven by managers. Of course, who else is going to drive it? It depends on you. So if your team is failing, it's on you. If your team is moving forward, it's still on you at the end of the day. So you can't escape it. At the end of the day, there's a lot of responsibility on your head. So that's it. So what are some challenges you face as a new manager? Lack of formal training. In fact, training is very important. That's why I said earlier that you learn to be a good manager. If you come to it's like a new project. You don't know what it is, but every time you are learning. So there is no training. It's a challenge you face. It doesn't mean it's a setback. It's just a challenge. It means you're doing it for the first time. There's that initial fear, but fear is allowed. But it's how you tackle it as you go forward. There's those challenges that determine, okay, how best you're going to be. I mean, you've probably been in different projects. I've been in different projects where I've been scared to do them. And then at the end of the day, they ended up being beautiful. So the fear was just there. It just showed that, oh, I've not done it before, but here I am, you get. Also, no reduction in the non-managerial workload. That could also be a challenge, especially if you're an organization that doesn't understand that your welfare is also important. So if you're in that kind of organization, it can be a problem, because now they're not reducing your workload, they're just adding. And if we're being honest, if you're effective, the reward for good work is more work. It's something we've heard over time. So if you are effective, obviously there will be more work for you, so you can't skip it. Sorry to those that are effective, there's always work to do. Sorry, can't help it. So management skills are learned. They're not innate. That is also another challenge I said earlier. Learning is important. Every day we are learning, and you can't escape learning, especially if you're trying to be a better version of yourself. So if you're trying to be a better manager, how else do you do that if you don't learn what it takes to be a good manager? I mean, today, just this evening, I've already learned how to do this on my Zoom, make my Zoom this. I mean, I've not done it before. And doctor was kind enough to walk me through it. So it's as simple as that. You always have to open yourself to learning. And then the need to shift from individual success to team success. That mindset is very hard to break out of, especially for people who are always focused on self and don't know how to work with people. Because as a manager, you're working with people. So who are you managing? It's obviously not animals. You're managing people. And these people, they have different characteristics. They have different temperaments. How are you going to do or manage them if you don't even learn that? I mean, you have to shift. So now you're not focused on yourself. The things, all those little gold trophies that you're hoping would be accrued to your name. Most times you may not even get the credits, if we're being honest. Like leadership is leadership in essence. So it's, at times it's thankless. So you have to prepare for that. How did this happen? Oh, when you're celebrating as a team, not as yourself. So that could be a challenge for people that like focusing on the things they achieve for themselves. So that's just it. Just a brief on challenges, why managers are important and the likes. So what 4 things or what other things you are supposed to do in your first 90 days as a manager? So Matteo, who is the manager of data science at GitHub, in chapter 1, talked about building a shared team identity. So talking about that, now you are coming into an organization for the first time, and when you come in here, obviously you don't know a lot of what they're doing, or you probably do. Maybe you've just moved to a new position. Whatever the case, there are things you need to observe and learn. You are with a new team, so it's a new position. So what is the purpose? You have to learn that. So he was very insistent. He said building a shared team identity is really important in that first 90 days, because you are in the long term, it's going to help you get through a lot of hurdles that you wouldn't have gotten through before then. And that will not happen if you don't establish what your team stands for at the beginning. I mean, you can look at different companies and see how they are run and how they are managed, and you can tell, okay, yes, these people, there's a cohesion. There's one team I respect that I don't support them, but I like them. That's Manchester City. For those of you who are football lovers, I love the cohesion. The first time I saw them play, I love the cohesion I saw in their team, especially this Guardiola set. They have, when you look at them, you can see that they're not playing for individual trophies. Yes, people will shine regardless, but when you watch them play, you can find that there's so much, they're tight. It's like gun body, everybody's working together to achieve one goal. So you can tell that Guardiola is really a good manager. And you can even see how that was reflected, especially when he went through what he went through with his wife and how that affected the team dynamics. Manchester City was losing for a while. And now they're getting themselves back, they're getting back on track. So that's what happens when you're not working for yourself, but you're working to ensure that your team is getting to the next. I think that's a very perfect example of how good or how best you can manage a team to get to where they should be. And even with Manchester United, the team I actually support, Amorim, you can see how he came in, observed the terrain, how he handled interviews, and how he's handling a lot of the things that he's doing. You can tell that, okay, he at some point, he's getting it. He's putting some things in place. The switch from what's it called, Onana to buying different things. So you can tell that, yes, he did his observations, noticed that, okay, there's some people that are left behind that should come to the fore. And now you can see the talents that are actually shining forth and those that have taken a backseat. So that is very important to know, first of all, the culture of where you stand, understand the team dynamics, define what your purpose, what your goals are, what your mission is, foster that sense of belonging. It's important to do that. Once you're able to do that, it's easy for your team to collaborate and get as much success as you would want. Now, even while you're still doing this, learn to take feedback. Feedback is very important. Matteo was very specific about that. And I think it's something we know, but I think we've gotten familiar with the concept, but we need to get back to understand that feedback is really, really important. And feedback is not to down you. but it's an observation over time. I can't remember the title of the book we did. I think that was last year, but early last year, there's a book we read that talked about not waiting for the end of the quarter or the end of the year to do your appraisals. That appraisal happens at different points in time. So you're not waiting for a specific time. Your appraisal happens every day. So that feedback that you give your teammates helps them. And your HR managers, obviously, you don't have to wait for a specific time. The feedback you give will help to improve. So in fact, it will help you. You don't need to have PIP. Like your PIP list might be very little, or you might not even have it if you are giving that constant feedback. And he said, when you're giving feedback, it should not be about telling people, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this right. You're not talking to children. It's not like telling secondary school students, oh, this is that. But you are sharing how the person could improve, or you like something, but they can take it to the next level. That's what feedback does. It's not supposed to down the person's spirit. So it's very important. And he said, even as you come into a team, you're supposed to tell them how you work so that they can know how to work with you. So after understanding the team dynamic, understanding the culture and every other thing there, then tell them, this is also how I work. Because imagine all your identities clashing because you can't achieve a project that you're supposed to achieve because you don't even understand yourselves. That's already a problem. So it's important to get that sorted. So tell them, okay, this is how I work, this is how I am, this is how we can achieve these goals together. Once that happens, it's easier. So I work with some interns, and when we started, it felt like I was talking to very shy people. But so I said, okay, let me observe them for a bit. And after observing them, I figured out, okay, these people can work in this level, these people can work in this kind of thing. And I was able to get them to open up, because by the time they did, when they left us, because they left us like last month, when I did an exit interview with them and I was asking them, okay, so how did you feel about this experience? What did you learn? And some of the feedback they gave me was really helpful. In fact, some of them said when they came in, they were very shy and they didn't know that they could do a lot of things, but they started opening themselves up because they finally felt comfortable enough to do that. And they've learned a lot. Some of them could not use simple graphic tools. It was important and it helped me. So when I listened to that, I think, okay, yes, I've done my part. They also gave me also feedback on things that could be improved. And that cannot happen if I did not establish that dynamic with them. So it's very important to do that with your team and make sure you establish the team goals, the visions, everything. Once you've done that and understood the culture, then explain to them how you work. Try to give feedback. It's very essential. So these are the many things that Mateo stated in as one of the things that you have to do. So I'll just give it to Victor now to move to our next point.
All right, Quinsley, thank you very much for that very great expository look into the first thing. And since you started with football, sadly, I'm a Chelsea fan, and I don't like you. Just football beefings. We can tell that if the team is playing badly, they'll fire the manager from basic football. For those of us that love football, so be the best manager in the world, just lose like 4 games in a row, then draw 2, then lose another 2, win 1, lose another 6, you lose your job. It doesn't matter if you are the best in the world. So it just tells us that from a managerial perspective, the team success is your success. And the second thing, which is like very important for managers to know, is that you got to create a learning environment. And thankfully, most of us are HR people. Learning is synonymous to growth. Learning has a direct link to employee engagement, growth, whatever it has to do. And learning is so deep. Learning is so deep that when you catch the fire of learning, you will not stop learning. Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. No, I mean 3 months ago in one of doctor's master classes. One of the attendees, I was an attendee, so one of the attendees also asked me that we have been learning plenty things from webinars and master classes. When will this learning even end, Seth? Yeah, I don't know if she's on this call. I remember answering that it just never ends. And managers must create that. I mean, why am I coming to HR mentorship again and again and again? It's because I'm going to learn again and again and again. And if I look at the trajectory of where I was before I came into HR mentorship till today, it's just not the same. And so managers should have that perspective. That's what the second point is saying. Create a learning environment. Very, very important, where people feel that they can grow, they can develop. Now, one or two things we can add there is that as a manager, you need to do a little bit of a gap analysis. So you don't just throw learning at people haphazardly. There are people who they have specialized needs. There are teams that have specialized needs. And that's why open communication is very important so that you understand your team. Again, because we have stayed on football examples, you don't give the goalkeeper training to an attacker or a midfielder. There are different kinds of training. So you really have to understand your team to understand what is special to them. But by all means possible, everybody has to grow. I met a man that was a couple months back again. He told me he's in his 60s. He told me that in his entire lifetime, he has worked in only 3 places. He worked somewhere for 12 years. Then he worked somewhere for another maybe 10 years. That kind of, and you want to really wonder. I mean, I'm not critical of him. There are several things, and some people will argue that generations have changed. But in my little time alive, only God knows. I know how many places I've been. I don't want to go compared to, you understand, in my little time alive. And there are several arguments now. But the most important thing is that, especially for Gen Zs, millennials, people just want to. So why am I staying with you for 3 years? Why am I staying with you for 5 years? If I come into this organization at this time, how am I growing? How can I cascade that? And that's what managers must put in place. People join your team in January, and then when they leave in December, they have to have that mindset of learning and growth. Very, very important takeaway. And that's by Cara Lamano. So managers, the second thing literally is to bring in a culture of learning into organizations. So one other thing that could learn is the mindset of curiosity, putting this curiosity mindset within your team, how that, they just want to answer questions. They just want to know that, okay, if I do this, I'm going to do this. If I do this, I'm going to get this. And people are just curious. I've also said that, your success is not what determines you being a successful manager. In fact, some of us, Quincy talked about effective people. Some of us, we grew our way into management because we were effective. So we did some tasks, we performed very well, and then we got that promotion. I remember when I left NYSC and I started working, the first task they gave me was to write a business proposal for somebody who wants to take a loan in the bank. It was in consulting. I've never done that before. What kind of, and I made some calls. I got all the guidance I could get, and I made that proposal. And the person got that loan as at that time. And trust what? You know what that means? It means that I wrote more stuff. I did some other things, and I was just an assistant, a trainee, whatever name you want to call it. But it earned me some growth. And from there, you just do things. However, when you start leading teams, it's very, very different. So what brought you up to that management perspective might not keep you as a leader. There are certain soft skills you might now begin to add, like empathy, having to understand people, like active listening. The best way to relay this active listening is, I don't know, from the chat section, I don't know, have you ever given a job to a graphic designer where you said they should design something for you? You are not a designer, you don't understand overlay, you don't understand, but you're arguing with the designer, the logo should be here. So have you seen a client and graphic designer fighting before? No, hear me. The color should be blue. Graphic designer say blue does not. No, the logo should be here. And then
Yeah, I've actually heard those stories.
you understand? It's a very big fight between this. And you need to, one person has to listen. Either you listen to the graphics designer or the graphics designer, okay, people are already laughing because you know you have designed things before. You would tell you would tell them that the logo should be in the center, but design-wise, it just does not make sense. So sometimes we have to listen. We have to listen to our subordinates. We have to listen to guys around us. I've talked about empathy, active listening. Those are like my, two key soft skills that you got to add to your overall technical skills, and some other things, literally just understanding. One of the examples I gave was, so people are, okay, what I ordered versus what I got. I can see that. So, so people are coming late to work before the sanction grid and everything you want to do. Why are they coming late to work? I think that's one question that we can start. Why are they coming late to work? And we can go on and on, but Quincy is doing an amazing job already, and I just have to chip in number 2. Okay, over to my co-discussant.
Over. Thank you, Victor. I just hear whining me, but it's fine. We'll keep up this journey. Okay, so thank you, Victor. Very, very important. I mean, it's important, like learning is very important. You can never learn enough. You can never stop learning. That's a really important point for, I think everyone should know. And it's something I highlighted. A manager doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not an innate ability. You have to learn to get to that level. Okay, so the next point was about studying and establishing your goals. So Tim Reitzma, who is like the general manager for people managing people. So this was his point. And he's a very serious person, like he just broke it down into 3 elements: clarity, responsibility, and accountability. Which, if you notice, for those of us that have actually digested the book, you would see that most of these points are repetitive, but they are highlighted well so that you can know, okay, yeah, this is what they are. So Tim said that clarity is very important, which I had emphasized earlier. I mean, if you don't know what it is that you want to do, how do you move forward? It's important to be clear. What are your goals? What is your mission? What are your duties? If that clarity is there, then you can move to the next point. You can now define what your responsibilities are. Looking at your team. Okay, we've been going on the football era, so let's just keep it going. So for your team, if you're finding players, you're a Chelsea fan, so you can remember the Roman era before now. I don't know what we have now. But when Roman was purchasing players, you can see the crop of talent that was there. I mean, everybody knew they had specific skills and they made Chelsea shine so well. I don't know what we have now. Sorry to all the Chelsea fans, but I don't know what we have. But yes, so it's very important to define what those responsibilities of every team member is. It's very necessary. Because if you don't do that, using the football analogy, you now put a midfielder in the goalkeeper's position. How would that work? It doesn't just make sense. You put a midfielder as a goalkeeper, you put a striker. I mean, you're just throwing people into different levels where they shouldn't be. And that will happen when you haven't done your due diligence. So everybody knows where they're playing. And you cannot now carry the referee and say the referee should come and play along with your players. I mean, everything, at the end of the day, everything needs to be defined. You can see how well football is defined. The referees know their position, the players know where they stand, the fans know where they are. It's as simple as that. So be clear, define your responsibilities. Then he entered the accountability section, which I feel a lot of people need to take this. It's just like feedback. In fact, feedback is part of it, but accountability is necessary. Am I doing what I said I would do? We said this is the goal we want to achieve. Am I taking steps to ensure that, okay, these goals are being achieved? And we said we'll have this in so time. You have a deadline. Are you doing that? If you're not doing it, then what is the point? How do we get back to the drawing board? How do we get back so that we don't lose the plot as we go long term? So it's very important to keep yourselves accountable. And that's why as HR managers, in fact, as managers in general, you have KPIs. Every organization has their metrics with which they measure success. And that can happen if a lot of things have not been defined from the get-go. Imagine you just enter an organization and things are just, everybody's just walking around. You don't know the organogram, you don't know your reporting line. Think of how chaotic that environment would be. I don't think anybody will be willing, the energy there will be on zero, if we're being honest. And at some point, that company might close down. So it's important to have all these things set so that, of course, nothing is set in stone. Obviously, with different stimuli, we'll have to always adapt. Companies are always adapting. But once you can define some clear goals, once you are defining also your responsibilities, and once you can have your accountability metrics in place, it's easier for you to navigate some mistakes, some whatever challenges they are going to face. Now, in doing all this, he also said that if in doing all this, you're not still getting to the goals that you want to get to, it's important to embrace change. You either change the organization or you change your job. Note, changing your job is the last resort. It is the last resort. But it's important as a manager to not just run away from any challenges you're facing. It's important to know, okay, you've sat down, you've done your analysis. Okay, this is what this company, this is how this culture is. I don't think we're getting to what we should be. So what can I do to change it? You have to do that constant analysis, do that constant readjustment, because the truth is that there are some goals that are probably not achievable short term, but long term they could be. So it's important to keep adjusting the processes that you have. And I mean, the world is always changing. So it's important to keep up with it and adapt at the same time. Yes, we're already in a trend world, but it doesn't mean that you stop doing the things that are necessary. And there's one thing he emphasized. He said, ask questions. Ask questions. It's very important to ask questions. And not just asking questions, but asking the right questions. Because imagine just, you say you want to get from, for those of you that live in Lagos, you want to get from Yanapaja to Lekki, and you don't know the way. You just enter a car and start moving. And you just enter any car, you don't ask, okay, where do I get a bus? Especially if you're new in town. You don't ask where you get a bus, or you don't find an, as in you just enter. What happens to you? You just be going. You sit down in the car, you're not asking anybody anything. You go enter one chance. It's very simple. So it is important to ask questions. And instead, we should ask the right questions. So don't lead with why questions. Why did this happen? Why did it happen? It tends to tighten people up. People get very distant. We're human beings. Just start asking me why this, and you're just, it's very highly likely that I will, or anybody in that situation will clam up and become very defensive. So ask your how and what questions. How do we get to our goals? What tools can I give you to help you get there faster? Or how can we improve on this particular, this asks the right questions and make sure they're very open-ended so that you can get a very robust response. And before you know it, your team is doing better than they should. So that's it from team. So let's hopefully Victor will give us the next beautiful point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Quinsley. Again, so having established clear goals, and don't forget shared identity, establish clear goals. We talked about creating an environment to learn from Kara. Now, just before I move on, there's something that is notable again, and just as an offshoot, that people will stay in an organization just because they see an opportunity to grow. I mean, in quotes, by what we read in that book. You know, a lot of people can argue that, you know, financial rewards, arguably, I mean, financial rewards, people need more money. In fact, I was speaking to Quinsley about the practical essence of some of these, you know, theories, and we're looking at it. Oh, this looks like, and I will say one or two things later. This looks like something that is very, very workable in US. How about in Nigeria and stuff like that? But I mean, these factors can be kept constant. But we know that if you know that if you come into an organization, you can rise through the ranks till you become a general manager. Just perhaps, you know, you might just want to stay a little bit longer there. So that being said, one other very important thing that was mentioned is the fact that let's change the narrative a little bit. Fine, we say there are not enough jobs, you know, people are out there looking for jobs. I've worked in a place before where the CEO will literally say, anybody that wants to leave should leave. How do we know how many people are on the streets looking for places to work? There are so many CVs are flying around. So everybody will be afraid. They'll think about their life again that, it's true. If I step out of this place now, you know what will happen to me? But you know, this book again, Kara mentioned that if you flip that, if you have a reverse psychology, I hope you know that one of the best things that can happen to you as a manager is to have the brightest of talents with you. That's like the essence of talent management. You have the best talent at your disposal. Again, because we are talking about football, you see some of these teams, you know, they spend 100 million, 200 million euros, you know, just large money because they want to get a single player, and then they stack them up. And you can tell that somehow there's a lot of bias towards having the best guys at your hand. I think it was Kara too who mentioned that if it's possible, make an attempt to hire people that are better than you, because you might learn from them. Although if you want to look at it like in real terms, I hire somebody that is better than me, okay? Perhaps not overall better than you, but there are specific things. The person can be, you know, more IT savvy, the person can be current, you know, technical, but you know that you can learn from this person. So like I said, let's flip the narrative and think like this as managers, that whoever we have on our team could have been working somewhere else. They chose to work here. I mean, it's not a very good analysis. It's not a very common analysis to think that your guys, if they are not working with XYZ company, let's use banking. I'm not mentioning the name of any bank, but assume this is bank A and you are thinking this way, that the person is not in this bank. You know how many commercial banks are in Nigeria? So we advise that as managers, it will make us appreciate, especially when you have great guys around you, to think that if they are not working with you, they will work somewhere else. And then you appreciate them some more. And I think when I reflected on that point, it made me think in this perspective that, Victor, perhaps you have to be extremely valuable to the point that, you know, you see that, oh, if you are not working here, if you have an opportunity to work here, you have an opportunity to work here, you are not dysfunctional. So whether as managers or we are being managed, I think it's something for us to learn from, that we have that edge, so that whichever way you flip it, there are no jobs, but there are excess candidates. There are right jobs, but perhaps we don't have the right fit, and I'm always going to be the right fit every time. So that's something that can help us as managers. So the fourth thing, as we gradually try to wrap up, is as managers, and this is by, I think her name is Loni. She mentioned that it's important for managers to build trusting relationships. And this is a super important. If you look at HR mentorship and you understand HR mentorship, you understand that the people effect, the compounding effect, the relationship. You know how many times you've gotten templates for free from that HR group you belong to, whether group 1, 4, 5, 6. You know how many times you have access to people. You see, on some of the groups, I'm on group, I think I'm on group 4. Sometimes you just see, is there anybody working in oil and gas here? I have a question. You will link up surely with somebody working in oil and gas. So that relationship mindset is something that we should carry into management. That don't forget our discussion from learning and growth and development. Do you know it's possible for you to manage somebody in 2010 and in 2021, the person is governor of a state? We are not saying we are not going to do very well, though. All of us will do very well, but life can be it's not predefined. You can meet somebody here and that relationship is just valuable forever. While there are many debates over, are we supposed to be friends at work and all that? That's not, there are boundaries to these things, but we are saying build relationship, understand what matters, what is important to the members of your team. Again, when we're having this discussion earlier on in the book, we're saying things like, what's the name of your staff's dog? Like, create an Excel sheet. For those of us who read the book, I hope you remember where they were saying, create an Excel sheet. Mark, you saw a place where they said you should find out the name of somebody's pet. And I was thinking in Nigeria that after traffic and everything, you'll not be thinking that, imagine I'm the manager to 3 persons. I'll now be thinking of, the names of their dogs and all that. So if we don't even want to follow those things literally, but how about telling them that, I know your birthday is coming in March, so I hope you are getting ready for your birthday. This person just understands that my birthday is. So things that are very, very important to people. Just as we talked about football jokingly, at least I know from now that I can joke about Man City or Man U, and I'm a Chelsea fan. You can have a teammate that is a Barcelona fan, and you guys are talking, and you just talk about Lewandowski getting old. Lamine Yamal is doing this. Lamine Yamal is doing that, and you guys bond. It might be favorite food. Awesome. Thank you very much, Ezine. It might be favorite food. So a lot of things to bond with people than just seeing that you just want to micromanage them. So there are 3 keywords by Loni. You listen to your people, you learn from them, and you love them. Love as in giving them a sense of belonging, letting them know that they understand. And, sometimes when we talk about performance management, we try to make people realize that you make the members of your team see their impact in the overall, in the overarching strategy, such that if a customer service person is not performing well, you can literally say that because you're not performing well, you see our turnover at the end of the year, we will not meet it. You understand? So everybody just understands, like everybody literally just understands how important their role is to the overarching strategy. So like I said, having that bond point, listening to them. I don't want to talk about listening again because we've mentioned that listening to them, learning from them, and then, loving them. 3 key things that we must take away from here. And I think finally, we said for managers, vulnerability is not crazy. It's okay that managers are sometimes vulnerable. So sometimes you can tell your team, I'm having a headache, right? I'm having a headache. Just give me some time. I don't want to take calls. Whatever you want to say to me, say them to me later. And that's something that some managers don't do. You want to appear very strong, you want to appear, but we should not forget that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So it's important that managers realize that you need to be sound emotionally, physically, mentally at the end of the day before you if you break down, there's nobody to manage, right? There's nobody to manage. So when you have done all of your management and you know that it's time to drink water or sleep extra, do well to do that. So leadership starts from you leading yourself, having a structure for your life, having as much productivity, you have your rest time and all that. Like I was telling Queensley, that you see her cheeks, she's supposed to also tell us how she's eating so that we can, as managers too, we can do well. Victor's Chicks is not so, maybe she will say that when next you want to talk, you have to give us tips. Queensley, you have to give us tips on how, after doing all the productive things, how can we have big chicks? But on a more serious note, we are just saying that let's learn to take care of ourselves. So we have talked about, goal setting, shared identity, creating a learning environment, building trusting relationships and all that. But take care of yourself. Manager, take care of yourself. Is there any other thing I'm supposed to say? I just want to check. I've talked about the fact that we should make people, I've also mentioned that people should leave us better than they met us. I think, yeah, the final thing I'm remembering now is this. Like what I said before, learning and development and growth may be costly. You might say you want to bring a trainer to create a system of learning and growth in your organization. Your CEO will tell you no, they don't have money or anything like that, even, and they might be right. But you see, building relationships, I would say it's to a very large extent free. I mean, if I need to, who are the people on the chat box? If I need to speak to maybe Lawal or Oluchi, yeah. If I need to use money to become your friend, like I'm sending you money just because I want to be your friend, or you are sending me money, I feel like that friendship we should be, are we, that's looking like business already, or transaction or business or something. So relationships can be built with intentionality, right? You are intentional about your team, and it's free. It's free to do. Perhaps there might be some, sacrificial moves here and there. You buy lunch for somebody, those things come, but the fact that you say good morning, good afternoon. If I send you a message, for instance, I'm managing you, and I send you a good morning, how are you today? And then I give you a task. And when you reply to me, you are responding to only the task. I'll call you back to the message. I mean, I just said, how are you? At least answer fine or not fine. But again, we are in Nigeria, a whole lot of things happen, and we see that, well, just go straight to the point. But please, let's realize that building relationships is intentional. And as I technically sign out, take care of yourself. And I pass the ball to Queensley to tell us how she has big cheeks. Thank you very much.
Thank God. Victor, you're not serious. They are no, these chicks are, I don't know, they are God given. I'm sorry. They are no secrets. Eat more protein. Maybe you have those chicks. I don't know. Drink water too. Do all that. But thank you, Victor. Yes, that last point you talked about is very necessary. Thank you, Franca. They tell you should leave Chelsea. Listen. But yes, that last point you talked about is very, very important. I mean, even look at HR mentorship as a whole. I really, really appreciate Dr. Adeosun. I'm glad I can even call him doctor, because I mean, it's a long time coming, but yeah. Yes, because he has been able to create a community of professionals that would come together and just give out value at basically no cost. This is not easy to do. So I really, really appreciate what he has done here. This is a great example of a great manager. This is proof of that. And I mean, like you said, relationship management is very essential and intentional. I mean, I've met very interesting people here and very wonderful people here. And that's just because of the good and great manager we have, Dr. Adeosun. I mean, V has been so helpful. So, I think she's so inspirational. I don't know how she does it, but she does it for me. And in fact, it's because of her. I mean, obviously, I've been wanting to do these reviews. And because of her and her push, I was able to start to face my fears and start doing all these presentations. I mean, I like presentations, but there's always this fear that follows me. So she told me to name the person, to name my alter ego that takes over once the fear has died down. I'm still thinking of naming that person. I'll get there. I'll get there very soon. But yes, I really appreciate it. So, I mean, and a lot of other wonderful relationships I've had, and it's really, I just, relationship management, yes, very essential. And yes, so those are the things all in one. Those are the things that you should be doing to ensure that your first 90 days as a new manager is successful, so that you have a good foundation and you're able to continue long term. Now that we've talked about the things that you should do in your first 90 days to make your journey smooth, what's that one thing that you shouldn't do? And that is, don't make assumptions. You can't come into a new environment and think you know it all. Mateo called that person the new sheriff in town. Don't come in here and start backing others at people. Nobody knows you. Nobody knows what you stand for. And you're already saying, yes, start doing it my way. These are the things. And when I was talking earlier with Victor, I talked about having a checklist. You know, some managers just come in because they've looked at it, and in their mind, they're trying to earn their promotions. So they have this checklist that they want for people. So when they come with that checklist, they're thinking, yes, okay, so yes, I must ensure, yeah, we need to have more dispensers around here. What are we saying? Yes, coffee every 3 hours. You know, you are having, you're trying to, and you're still thinking with the mindset of self, what you want to achieve, not what you should be achieving with the team. And that will already stifle you. So stop making assumptions. Ensure that when you come into a place, you understand. This is something I've emphasized even over time as the presentation went on. It is important to understand where you are. Don't assume you know anything. Don't even assume that you can impose yourself or your ideals on people. I mean, Kara had warned against that, and she said you produce a lot of quiet quitters. So in order to avoid that, ensure that you're not imposing your ideals on people. It's very, very important. Do not make assumptions. Ensure that you focus on what's necessary. Focus on creating a stable foundation. Stop thinking that you should start making immediate changes. Like I said, trying to earn your promotion in a new position now. So what do I do? I need to get started. I need to hit the ball running. There's no ball to hit. Calm down first, relax, and observe your environment first. Then it's easier. And let's take a sample of HR socials. For most of you that are on the HR socials platform, when some people come in there are some people that are able to come in and observe and then adapt. Some people come in and just stay silent and do nothing. And then they are complaining of the same thing over and over again. And then when they are kicked out, they're wondering why they're kicked out. You didn't do what was necessary. It's as simple as that. You get? So I think HR Socials is a very good template to understand this book. For those of you that are in socials and you've read this book, yes, that's a good template for this book. So you're laughing because you know. So very, very essential to understand this. So don't make assumptions. And if you had listened to Kunle when he had done a presentation on when you get into a new workplace, the things that you should do, don't go in and start making changes. And it boils down to all these things. So don't make assumptions. Ask questions. Don't impose your perspective, and focus on earning trust. Victor talked earlier about building trust, loving people. It's important to earn the trust of the team that you're going to work with, because if they don't know what it is or who you are as a person, if they can't say, okay, because as a manager, there are 3 things you need to be. You need to be reliable, you need to be commendable, and someone should be able to recommend you somewhere. So you can't do that if you just come in and you're just imposing yourself. So it's important to be reliable, dependable, and commendable. It's as simple as that. So this is what you shouldn't do when you are a new manager in your first 90 days. So Victor, I don't know if you have any more points to add to this.
For me, I mean, we've literally gone through everything. Thank you again for that great session. Uh, just to add one or two things, I would say I've talked about intentionality. I would just say these things are they are actions, they are habits that we can build. Little habits. Sometimes you might just need to say every day, you want to reach out to maybe two persons, maybe. I think it was one of those doctor sessions where you said in a month you can say you want to actively, follow up on like 20 persons or so. It might be your team members. It's just something we can all be conscious about, including me. And on a final note from me, if you just go into a place and you begin to do anyhow, people would ghost you. And somehow you might have to do everything yourself at some point, or you start to push them. You know how you push a car before it literally starts, and you don't want to be in that place. And don't forget that as a manager, your real success is in the success of your team. I'm sure Doctor would sit as a proud father if he hears that one person in HR mentorship is doing this in Abuja, another person is doing this in Lagos, and they're asking them stories of what has made you up. Literally, I mean, those who know me personally, I can nearly not finish a sentence without referencing HR mentorship or doctor in one way or the other. And so there's that feeling that it should give you as a manager when you see that people are just doing well. And that would be our parting words from Victor and Quincy. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yes, thank you. And just before we end, so I'm going to share two articles. I should have talked about them, but they do express what bad management does to a company. There's a company called Gravity Payments. For those, if you've read the story, probably someone has come across it, Dan Price, the former CEO of Gravity Payments. If you had just read through the article, so it will show you what bad management can do to workers and company, and just so I'll share it with you, and hopefully that helps everyone. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Victor. That was very insightful. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, so I don't know if anyone has any questions that you want to ask us, maybe before we go off and hand over to our Ogas in the Lord. Yes, thank you all so much. Thank you all. If you have any questions, would like to.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Vicky Star. Thank you, Tokbe. Thank you, everyone. Okay, yes, Vicky Star, what's your question? Yeah, Vicky Star, you're about to ask a question. What's your question?
People who want to ask questions should raise their hand so that you can unmute them, please. They can't unmute directly. You need to unmute them.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Vicky Star, I'll try to unmute you so we can hear your question. Yes, so you can unmute yourself now.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry,
Good
can you
evening,
hear her?
everyone. Thank you for this awesome section.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for the section. It was so inspiring. I got a lot, like I gained so much. Now, back to my question. In a setting where, okay, you're a new manager and you're trying to understand, just as the book said, you have to understand the sector, you have to understand the environment, you have to understand everyone. And also these persons you're coming to lead, they're trying to understand who is this person coming to lead us. how will our own tenure, what will be our reaction? So everybody's watching, you are watching them, they are watching you. And at some point, you try to bring them close and familiarize yourself with them. Find out that when you tell those persons to do certain things, especially when it has to do with the heads of, let's say, the team leads, they wait for you to keep pushing, they wait for you to do the monitoring, they wait for you to inspect. Sometimes it's kind of exhausting. If you see one of my comments, I said sometimes they drain you. Is that tough? Let me use that word if I'm permitted. But at that point, what do you do? Because you find yourself, you're tired. Like, what else can you just do to make this people understand that you're meant to lead this other subordinates so that you can report to your head, kind of. I don't know if you understand. Now you're leader, you have team leads, they have to report to you, but you find yourself doing their job at some point, and they want you to still. Well, so what do you do at that point? That's basically my question.
Okay. So Victor, can you answer that?
Ah, I thought it was ladies first, but
Please. I'll be
any,
doing ladies first. Yeah.
any which ways. Well, this might be a little bit of a culture problem. Again, when issues like this happen, if I am the manager or perhaps the HR person on ground, there's this approach I learned how you indirectly talk about something. So because we have to talk about it, we have to talk about it. Perhaps we're at meetings, so you're addressing issues, but you're not calling anybody's name. The same way we'll come to these webinars and we'll say we want to mention one bank in the financial, but you will not call anybody's name. However, you address the issue. It's an issue. Then you also have to make people understand the implications of what they are not doing right. That's why these orientations, these meetings, I understand the fact that some people can have a lot of meetings and talk, and then they don't do those stuff. Just maybe before you get to sanctions, but sometimes you need to point these issues out while you are not, like you said, they are managers. So we come for maybe Monday meetings and you are telling people that, oh, you need to submit reports on time. You're not submitting of these reports on time has this adverse effect. I think that's usually my stage number one, talking about these issues, letting people see how badly it can impact. And if that does not work, I believe Queensley has an extra line of action.
Yes, you wrote me in. Okay. Yes, so I agree with the culture aspect. I feel like because we talked about building a foundation, so it's already affected, the culture has already affected what should be obtainable on normal days. So output is, well, I see, terrible. So in that case, what I would suggest is to have a one-on-one. I think one-on-ones are very effective for me because that's what I do. So once I notice that there's a shift in the energy, the output is no longer what I want it to be, I have a conversation. What are we not giving you? Because you also need to find that out. Maybe there are some tools you're not supplying that the person needs to make their work effective. Or even if it's not tools, maybe the culture is not as hyper as the person wants it to be, but the culture is affecting the person's productivity. Maybe there are times the person has offered opinions on certain things and they weren't taken seriously, because I think that's one thing some managers get wrong. Like, yes, people offer valuable suggestions, but you tend to down them. So also think about that. Maybe they feel they aren't being heard. So all these things are going to come out in that conversation, but you can't know. You can only see from afar. So the best way to know is to ask. And it's your method of asking that will determine, okay, what they're going to tell you. Because if you have been the kind of manager that is always backing orders at them or trying to impose those orders. If you have been that person, it's going to be very hard to obtain the information and data that you want to work with. But if you have been the manager that is approachable, and obviously it's very, but it's important to open yourself up, and then you need to break those walls, because I think a lot of managers have a lot of defense mechanisms up, because yes, we say don't be too friendly, but at least you should be approachable. People should be able to talk to you, because feedback is not one way, it's a two-way street. So as much as you're managing them, there also needs to be, I mean, that's why we have mentoring and reverse mentoring. So yeah, they are not the only people learning from you, also learning from them. So all this will be obtained in an in-depth conversation, but that will not happen if you don't tailor your approach. And yeah, so tailor your approach, how you want to talk to that person, have a conversation is very essential. So that's how I feel you can handle that. So yeah. Jane, okay, she said, for me, it's not a question, but I want to add to what our speaker said. As a manager, you should have a clear communication or know how to communicate your team. Very important. Yes, very essential. Yes, very, very essential. Because every team member is unique. The dynamics of a team are different. There are some people, of course, over time, we've talked about the generational dynamics. We've talked, I mean, people have different characters. So you, as a manager, it's your job, because it's not that person's job. It's your job to know your team in depth. You're supposed to know how each team member would react to how you talk with them. So it will help you tailor your communication approach. So yeah. So thank you so much, Jane, for that addition. And thank you, Vicky Star, for your question. P said, thank you, please, how can we get the recording? It will be available on YouTube during the week. So just stay tuned for that. It will be, yeah. Okay, so if there are no other questions, we would like to hand over to our Ogas, Dr. Adesina Z, so that we can close the session. Okay. Z, yes, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone. And thank you all for being such good sports. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I was waiting for Doctor to come, but I guess he was doing ladies first. So
I
yeah.
guess so.
Thank you, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed the, I was looking, I said we should have changed the topic to football. We should have added football inside. We went to a school of, there was some schooling on football techniques in there, and I saw the way you were passing, Victor was passing the ball to, who was passing the
It
ball
just
to
happened. We didn't plan this. It just
goals,
happened.
goals were just being scored. And we were just inside football field. But I love it. I love the cohesion and everything. It was fantastic. This is like a master class for whoever is aspiring to be a manager, whether you're there or you're not there. It's an amazing, I mean, I don't know if people were not taking notes, please make sure you go back and listen to this and take notes. One of the things that really resonated to me, even when I was reading the book, and something Uwa said towards the end, which I kept on noting, as a leader, you have to recognize different perspectives, because you will have different people. Your team members are not the same. Your team members are not clones of you, or they are not homogeneous. People have different ways of thinking. And when I think back to managers I've had, the ones that were successful were the ones that recognized, the difference in people's perspectives and listened. The repetitive theme was listen. So, I had managers that would listen, no matter how stupid your contribution was, they would listen, so how it is in a group of people, you always have these people that talk, and then there are those that are quiet, that don't want to say anything. I had managers that Okay, yes, sir. I had managers that I had a manager or two or so that would want those quiet people to talk. And you find that those ones that are quiet, when they open their mouth to talk, you're like, wow, they actually have stuff to say. But so it's so important to, recognize the diversity in your team and include everybody, make everybody feel important, make everybody listen to everyone's perspective, to stay away from unconscious bias. That's a word that pops up, unconscious bias, because you may have a particular perspective about something until you now hear from people, different, people. And then again, when you hear different perspectives, those different perspectives can bring richness to your ideas, to the execution of your plans. Yeah. So very important. And that was what stood out to me. But guys, this was amazing. Like Kudirat said, yes, listen, learn, and love. Yeah. Listening is so important. Listen. Yeah, but thank you. It was an amazing time with you guys. I made a few notes. I was taking note of the gems that you kept on dropping. And we just look forward to more and more of seeing you guys throughout the year in other reviews. Vicky Star said it's rare to have managers that really listen. I guess we're all a work in progress, but that's why we have this book. That's why we're learning. Those of us that are already managers, those are aspiring to be managers. These are things that you should learn. Like Victor said, it's habits that it's not something you're going to do become overnight. It's little habits. You start, from those little things you're doing. Practice with, someone who's close to you. Practice, and then before you know it, practicing makes perfect. Let's not become those managers. Let's become the managers we want. Let's manage the way we would want to have been managed. I think Simon Sinek said something like that. Become the manager you would want to, to have been or to have had. So it's a lesson to us. We can look at the mistakes of the ones that we have experienced, but then aspire to be better than them, or aspire to be fantastic managers. So without much ado, thank you guys. It was a wonderful time. And we look forward to our next book review. The book for the month has been dropped. It has been dropped like it's hot. Doctor has dropped it. So we look forward to seeing, review. If someone is fast enough, we can start from this night. I know you said has been a while, but yeah, please, let's start. We're already on the 5th. We're already on the 4th day of February, and February is very short. So we have 4 chapters to go through. So let's get be on our marks and get set, ready, go. But thank you, Victor. Thank you, Owa. It was amazing. And thank you to everyone, all 48 participants. At some point, we were 56 or more. Thank you to everyone that was a part of it. Everyone have a good night, and still have a next book review. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night.